What is up, Nerf Nation? I'm Naptown Nerf, and today we're going to be doing a mod guide for the Nerf N-Strike Elite Modulus Longstrike. Now, if you have the old version of a Longstrike that does not have Elite internals, which is all previous versions before this one, this mod guide will not work for those. So this is going to be a pretty basic, simple mod guide, and then maybe later on we'll do a more advanced, like brass breech mod guide for this. Because that would be really cool to do to this. But today we're just going to see what simple mods we can do to get a decent performance gain. So let's go ahead and remove the bolt first, which is really easy to do now. You just unscrew it, and that is super, super nice. There we go. And then you're going to want to put that into something along with the other parts probably so you don't lose it. For now, I'm just going to put it off to the side here. And then we'll flip this guy over. And we'll remove all these screws. These screws are a little bit larger than your normal Nerf screws, so you're going to want a little larger screwdriver. So we'll grab a number 1 screwdriver and go ahead and remove the outer screws. So we won't have to worry about any of the screws in the stock. We will just have to remove screws in the main portion, and there is... looks like one little screw, and we'll get a smaller screwdriver for that one, but we'll go ahead and start with the bigger ones. Alright, so real quick overview of the screws. Most of them are those larger screws, but there are a few of those that are shorter, and those are going to be all along the top. And then there's 2 smaller diameter screws that are right here and right here. Those are the more like normal size Nerf screws like you'd see in a Strife. And then this one is the teeny tiny screw, obviously. So you definitely want to use a smaller screwdriver for that one. We'll go ahead and remove the shell and see what we got to work with. Pretty easy removal there, so that's nice. And those are our internals. So we can go ahead and remove this stock. It just comes right out. And we will do a mod for this later on to make this removable. That is going to be the same as all other long strikes from forever ago. So pretty simple mod, but we'll worry about that later. So as you can see, we have a direct plunger system, which is brand new for this blaster, which is awesome. And that gives us a lot of mod potential, which is great. So obviously we have a bolt sled, our bolt, our plunger rod inside there with the spring on top of it, our spring rest, our trigger, our catch, you know, normal internals for a bolt action, or most Springer blasters even. Very similar internals, all of them, but nevertheless, we will go ahead and remove these, and then we'll see what we can work with. Alright guys, so before I get ahead of myself, we're gonna remove some locks and not put those back in. And one of them is right here. So we'll get this guy out. It just pops right out like that. We won't need this guy right here. So we can remove this. Should just tease out just like that. And then we have a lock in our sled here, and we are gonna remove that also. Then we can put this back in. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and remove these little depriming locks. Also, since we removed the other locks, we'll be able to deprime our blaster without using these, which is the nice thing about removing them. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now if you remove this one, it will leave a hole in the side of the blaster with nothing to fill it. You could just leave this without taking it out. I'm sure it wouldn't affect anything. It's not going to be functioning. So I might just leave it in just so we don't have a hole in the side of the blaster, but it will not do anything. So there's really no need for it to be in there, but we'll go ahead and put it back in just for cosmetic purposes. So they have this little cap that is on the back, and it doesn't really allow your plunger head to come out, but with a little twisting it actually pops right off. So if you want to remove that, you can. Although I've looked at this and this seal feels pretty darn perfect, pretty nice there. So I wouldn't say you need to remove this if you don't want to. So we'll take a look at our spring here, and this looks like your normal retaliator spring, so we should be able to put a retaliator spring in here and it should work just fine. So I have a few different turf springs that I had laying around. These are the 6 and the 12 I know are specifically for the retaliator or anything similar to that. So in theory this could work for this. And then there's a 10 kg spring, and I think this is for possibly a retaliator or anything else. I think this is kind of a multi-purpose spring. I've used this in many builds actually, and lengthwise this is a little longer than the other two, and it's pretty similar to this. Although we do have one thing to think about here, and this is a pretty small spring rest, and it just sits in there real tight and kind of actually locks in. There's kind of a click there. So the thickness of the spring is gonna be somewhat important. Now obviously you could, modify this a little bit and give yourself a little more space in there, but that could weaken things a little bit. And this is going to be a pretty simple mod guide, so I don't want to do too much, modification to parts like this and whatnot. So let's see which one I think will work the best. The 6 is pretty tight, but it does go in there, so I'm hoping that one will work. It seems like that one will work. The 12, the 12 is definitely too thick. It won't even come close to going in there. The 10 I thought was going to be a really good option, but it too seems to be a little thick, so that you're going to run into problems if you don't modify it and use that one. Now I don't have the latest version of the Foam Freaks turf spring for like this, so I don't know if it's any different or not, but I'm sure those guys could tell you if it'll work or not. I don't know if they picked up this blaster yet or not, but I'm sure they would have some better information, and I'll link in the description to where you can pick up springs from them. But I do believe they carry I'm pretty sure they still carry the 6 kg spring, so we'll go ahead and use that guy and see how it works. So I found another spring actually in my spring box, and this is, I believe, the orange ModWorks 7 kg spring, and this is the 6 kg that I was talking about earlier, and I think this one should work too. So that's good news. So if you want to go with a 7 kg spring over the 6, it's a little beefier. I think I'll go with this one just because it's a bit beefier, but both would be pretty good options. So I couldn't find my large tube of super lube, but I do have the smaller one, and this is the lube I prefer for greasing O-rings and plunger tubes. I know like Orange ModWorks sends you white lithium grease, but I really prefer a synthetic grease, and this is a great one. You can get little tubes like this from Containment Crew, or you can get a large tube from other retailers. I'll try to find both links and put them in the description box. I went ahead and cleaned up the plunger tube and removed all lubricant that was already there, along with the O-rings, so we can go ahead and apply more now. And this should give us a little bit better seal. So you may have noticed this plaster actually has a pretty significant amount of dead space, which unfortunately we can't really do much about it. Nevertheless, it is what it is, and we'll just deal with it. Hopefully we can get still some decent performance upgrades with just a spring upgrade and relubricating everything. So we'll go ahead and reinstall everything back in the blaster, and we'll see what we got. We may need to upgrade our catch spring here, but this one doesn't actually, this one feels reasonably tough. So I'm gonna see if this works just like this. If not, I will go back in and grab one of my catch springs and replace this. Now, honestly, I'm not sure we even need to keep this part on here. I'm probably gonna take it off because I feel like it's just gonna flop around unless I glue it back on. So I'm gonna leave it off. It should be just fine. I just wanted to point out something. When I put this in, this little notch thing in the plunger rod was down, so we're going to make sure that's down again. I just wanted to remove stuff so you guys could see that. We'll go ahead and put the catch back in. This part, the longer side, is the part that goes up. So that'll fit in there nicely. Make sure you don't pop out your catch. Get that guy back in. This is pretty tight on here, so I did use a little bit of a screwdriver to kind of help me release it. They do have screws that hold this down. You can replace those if you want. I don't think they're super necessary, but I'm going to go ahead and replace mine just to have them in there. And then when you put your plunger back in, make sure these two notches are pointing up. So I think that's pretty much it that I can think of. We'll go ahead and lock down those two things. We'll go ahead and replace our parts up here, so don't forget that. We'll go ahead and put the whole blaster back together, and then we'll go to our stock modification. Alright, so we're going to take a look at our stock here, and we are going to do what I'm sure a lot of you guys already know. And if you know what to do here, just you can fast forward to go to the firing demo for the blaster, see what kind of performance we're getting. But we're just going to file down these straight edges so they have an angle on them. So there's 4 of them there. And I like using a file. You could use a Dremel, but I think a file does a better job and is a little bit easier to use. So we'll grab our file here and get to work. Alright, so that's done. Not the probably prettiest job ever, but should get the job done, and you're not going to be able to see it once you put it in the blaster, but we will just go ahead and it should slide right in with a little bit of force. Slides in, and then you should be able to remove it with a little bit of force. And you can, so that's pretty cool. There you go. Your stock is removable now. Alright you guys, it's pretty windy out here, so hopefully that doesn't affect things too much, including the audio, but we'll go ahead and do a quick firing over the chronograph to see what kind of performance gains we're getting. And we'll start out with elite darts because that's what the blaster comes with. .84, 86, duplicate 86, 80, 80, 84, and we're out. We'll go ahead and switch to AccuStrike darts. 86, 97, that's a little better. 89, 90, 105, 100. Here we go. Now we're breaking her in. All right, go ahead and switch out to AccuFake darts. 73. This headwind is really not great. Duplicate 73, pretty low there. 77, 80, 75, 78, and that's it. Alright you guys, so I went ahead and threw the attachments on just for fun, but really does not fit in my screen that way. So nevertheless, I think we got a decent amount of an improvement there with that 7 kg Orange Modular spring, and I think it would be pretty similar with the 6 kg Turf spring, maybe a tad bit less, but pretty good options there. And then we could probably do a bit more modification internally to fit other springs, a little bit beefier springs. Obviously, we could do a brass breech, get great improvement that way. And now that it is a direct plunger system, that is a great option. maybe even an expanded plunger tube. That would be something to look into, but this was supposed to be a basic mod for accessibility for pretty much anybody that watches my channel. I think you could do this mod. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this content. It greatly helps out the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications. Also, think about sharing this video with your friends if you think they would be helped by this information. And as always, guys, peace out.